Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're glad you're
JP,
here, man. We're
glad to be
glad
on
you're
the
here,
show.
dude. Tell people about the Open. Tell people what you just told me about you doing the first workout on one arm and why.
Yeah, so you asked me how it went. I said it went fine. I had to do it on one arm because playing hockey 2 weeks ago, I had a long head biceps rupture. So basically, you got two heads of the bicep, and I was reaching out, like poke checking someone. First time playing hockey in a while, and I felt like a weird little pop, and it wasn't like super painful. I thought it was like more in my shoulder, and I just kept playing and was like, oh, that was kind of weird, like shook it out. And then I get to the locker room at the end of the game, and I'm taking my pads off, and the guys, I just met all these guys, and they're like, "Man, great game. That was super fun having you." And I'm like, "Thanks, can't wait." And like, I'm taking my pads off, and I was like, "That's a lot of bone right there." I was like, "What?" And I'm instantly, I hadn't even looked at it. I was like, "Oh no,"
You knew.
because I've read about it before, and I've had some people I've worked with in the past that have had an injury like that, and I was like, "Oh no, I've ruptured my bicep." And I take my pads off, and I was like, "Hey guys, I think I ruptured my bicep." And they were like, "Huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, look." And they were like, "Oh."
Dang,
So,
dude.
yeah,
That's
but yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate, but yeah, I went to the ortho and had everything checked out, and no surgery needed. So I guess I got lucky there. I mean, unlucky that it happened, but lucky that there's no crazy surgery needed or anything like that. I just got to like strengthen up the short head and make sure that that arm doesn't lose a lot of power over time. And I was basically told like you could reattach it, but it's only going to help, um, uh, like improve the aesthetics of it. Which I was like, I'm not too worried about that.
interesting. So that is pretty wild. You don't technically need that. Like it doesn't do
Yeah,
anything super functional.
I mean, yeah, it's not a prime mover. I'm not like a doctor, so I can't say with certainty like how much it actually impacts elbow flexion, but like like it happened and I like didn't even know. In that sense.
That's
I
insane.
felt something in I thought it was like a shoulder thing, and because I was like still playing, could move my arm fine. Like there was no
Yeah.
pain, there's no swelling, no bruising. So it was like really strange. Yeah, it's one of the weirder injuries I've ever had.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anything lead up to that though? Like what causes a bicep tear? What like was it overuse? I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, generally, with a proximal long head rupture like that, they say it's wear and tear at the shoulder. So,
Yeah.
um, I mean, I didn't have any signs leading in of like, oh, like my left shoulder feels banged up. I mean, I competed. I did a comp 2 weeks before, so maybe that had some impact on it. Like we
Right.
pushed really hard to try and win, and so maybe that had something to do with it. But I mean, it was just like a weird motion where I was reaching my stick out, like that's a really long lever with weight of the stick, trying to like push it, poke check at someone, and they like hit my arm in a weird way. So, it
Yeah.
could have just been a freak accident. I mean, I'd like to think I'm a little more resilient than that, but I guess not. Um, so I think,
Well,
yeah, I mean,
how old are you now?
I'm 38. I mean, I've been competing in CrossFit for like 15 years. So
Yeah.
like, I can't say, oh no, there was nothing that led into it, but it's just like, years of competing at a high level and trying to go hard. So
Mhm.
my guess is like that had some impact on it.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, real quick. Are you on is your phone sideways or vertical?
I'm on my computer.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. You're good. Perfect. Um so what was your score for the open? What'd you get?
I got into clean and jerks of the 24.
Nice. Okay. How'd that feel?
It felt, I mean, I was doing it all in my right arm, and my wife is standing behind me, Brandy. She's watching, and she's like, "Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Don't do something to your other bicep." So I
Dude.
was taking a lot of breaks. It was more like I did it at Friday Night Lights with the group, and just wanted to jump in with the gym and all that, and I just moved well.
Yeah.
Wasn't
No, I
like
get that.
going crazy. So
It was a very good workout, like a very inclusive workout.
yeah,
Like it was just a very fun engine piece, nothing crazy. You can make it
yeah.
as hard as you wanted to.
Yeah, on our Corpus Animus podcast, we talked about that. We kind of did like a recap on it, and I thought, yeah, I mean, I thought like the members had fun, and I thought like the movements that they selected created some separation. Like last year's with it being dumbbell snatch and burpee only, like there was just kind of no escaping, and like members, and if you're thinking of the higher level athlete, like whatever, they suck it up, they do anything, and they're not worried about like the the psychological experience that the workout creates. The
Right.
other 80 to 85% of the world that's doing it, like you have to kind of consider where are they actually going to be in this? How far along are they going to get? If they're only getting like 5 to 6 rounds, then having a lunge in there is going to create some separation. It's going to make the workout a little more fun instead of just like, God, like back and forth burpees and pulling something off the ground.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what the intent was, but I feel like the movement selection allowed for that for a very large majority of the population.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I was talking to Kyle Spears, and I was like, man, it'd be cool if the lunge was like 90 feet. Like that would have been kind of because
Yeah,
you
or
then for
carry
the
the
elites, you
dumbbell.
would have seen a little bit more separation there.
Yeah, yeah, we talked about even carrying the dumbbell. That's um, makes that element carry it anyway. That way there's not like a crazy standard or anything that's hard to judge. It's just like pick it up and move the object.
Yeah,
But
100%.
yeah, I mean, you could always find something wrong with any workout. Like you're trying to please a really large audience. You've got opinions on the high level. You've got opinions on the large gen pop. So it's just, I don't think you can ever nail it.
No, you won't. There'll always be issues with it. Is Travis doing the open, or is he just doing the World Fitness Project?
He's doing the open, yeah. So like based on making sure that this opportunities for the season stay alive, you kind of
Got
have
it.
to do the open because a lot of like sanctionals and or semifinals, whatever, they uh they have requirements that like, oh, well, you can do it, but you couldn't take a game spot unless you had done the open. So if any of those you go to, like if you haven't done the open, you could go to the event and do well, but you can't qualify for the games through it.
I see. Okay, yeah, yeah. I was trying to understand the whole navigation of the season. A little
Yeah.
is a little bit confusing. But that was actually the reason why I retested the workout. It was because at first it was like I thought it was just 1% go to the in person, or excuse me, the in affiliate semis.
Hmm.
But then I saw that the top 20 in the East go straight to the in person semis. Is that
Hmm.
correct?
Say that again. I'm not
So
sure.
1% go to the in affiliate quarters to
Yeah.
then earn a spot to semis. But
No, no, no.
then
There's no quarters. It's the next stage is in affiliate semifinals, and then
what
from there
about
you qualify to go to the games.
what about the in person semifinal event like the Syndicate Crown?
That's different. So every kind of semifinal is going to have a different qualification. So Syndicate
Okay,
is using the Open for a qualifier for that,
that's what it is,
and
and
then
they're
they're
take
also using the in affiliate as well.
yes, that's what it is. Okay, and they're
Yeah.
taking top 20 in the East to
Yeah.
their event
Yeah.
because so that's what I saw with Kyle, and I was like, you know what, I might as well shoot for that and try to just make it to that event. I
Yeah.
mean, either way, but I thought that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, but other semis are using it differently. They have kind of their own qualifications. So yeah, it is a I mean when you sit down and look at it, it takes some effort to understand it all, but it's different than last year. And I think
Yeah.
like there's a lot of rules they're still trying to iron out, like how the head judging works. Can you compete and be a head judge at your gym? Like stuff like that's uncertain. So there's a lot of things that we'll see this year, and just I'm just expected again for it to just be like, I don't know, like
Yeah.
us to get responses where it's like we're not really sure
Yeah, yeah.
from from HQ. So we'll see.
That's what I keep saying. I was like, I'm just gonna keep showing up, doing the workouts as hard as I can, and just let me know what my next thing is, and then
Yeah.
I'll go there and do that. Like that's
Yep.
all I care about. I was asking about Travis though because I looked up his name in the qualifier. I wanted to see what he got, and I couldn't find him. I was like, either I'm spelling his name wrong or he's not doing it. And so I was
It
curious
was
if
kind of
he's
a last minute, like, I wasn't planning on doing it. Oh, I'll do it now and jump in. So, you know,
yeah.
I think he didn't do it till Monday. I feel like training wasn't optimally set up for it. So,
Yeah, no. Well, hey, good news is 1% is pretty easy to make for a guy like Travis.
yeah, yeah.
Pretty effortless,
Imagine
honestly.
the following weeks will go better, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, well let's focus on you, man. So you're 38, you're a father of two, you're trying to be a coach, a fit dad, you're trying to provide like the whole thing. Let's give people insight into what that balance looks like for you, man. Like what's the I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question, but first thing that comes to mind is like, what's your priority? Like, how do you prioritize your life and your focus around that?
Hmm. That's a big question. Where
Yeah,
to
yeah,
start? Yeah. Um, I mean, there's a next level. You start as, I'm fully responsible for myself, which to me is like the easy part. And it's like, no wife, no kids, like handling myself is, the problems back then seem large, but then as you continue to add more responsibilities to your life, and have more blessings, like a family, and things start to kind of fall into perspective, and you learn and you figure out ways to cut out things that aren't as important or essential as you thought they were, and
Yeah.
that over time, like, you just continue to get more and more efficient with that. So I would say it's like, it's been a 10-year process of that. Like, before I was married, life was simple in that I was just focused on me all the time. And
Yeah.
you don't realize how selfish you are when you live that way. And then you marry someone and you're a husband, and trying to be a provider, and learning to live selflessly, where it's not just about serving myself. That's a good learning experience. And it's a reflection of yourself when you
Mm.
have a partner, because that you get feedback all the time on how selfish you are being or are not being. So I'd say, like, step one, that's like was one of the biggest learning experiences, was, yeah, I'll be a great husband. I'm gonna do things with my wife, and but at the same time, it's like, oh, I'm still gonna go protect my stuff, and
Yeah.
you level up and learn over time, over the next few years, on what it means to actually be in a relationship, and to be a servant to each other. So, um, I'd say, like, that was step one of kind of getting to where I feel like I am now in terms of finding balance with it all, is um, learning to live selflessly with my wife. And then second, we had our first kid, Liam, who's 5 now. Time is just moving, man. It's so
Crazy.
crazy.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
Um, we had our first kid, and we thought, like, how are we gonna do this? We've got all these things we want to do. We want to, like, train and coach, and I've got, like, ambitions with work and coaching, and I just
Mm.
don't know, and, like, you figure it out. Again, you start cutting out the non-essentials and learning to be more efficient with your time, and you realize before you have children, and this isn't to sound like arrogant or judgmental on people that aren't in relationships or don't have children, but I look back and I'm like, man, I was just so, like, lax with my time and inefficient. And then
Yes.
you have some pressure, raising a family, and you just make sure that the things you're doing, you are, like, fully engaged, and you're just not wasting much time. So I feel like that was kind of like step two in the learning experience, was, all right, like, if I'm going to take care of myself or do my things, like, I got to get it done. And, like, it may not be the 3 hours that I thought I was going to have. It might be 1 hour instead.
Yeah.
So I think just kind of, like, learning to roll with that, and setting expectations a little bit lower. I have that conversation with athletes all the time in our group programs. They'll pop a question in, hey, I just had my first kid. Like, how am I going to adjust my training? I don't know how I'm going to get 2 hours a day in. And I'm like, first off, don't expect 2 hours a day. If you can expect 30 minutes and then you get an hour, you have set yourself up for success. You come in and you just feel so much more grateful. But if you have that constant expectation that I'm going to have this kid, and life's not really going to change, it's not going to impact my life, or, like, my control of my life, the
Right.
perception of my control of my life,
Yeah.
um, then you're just going to set yourself up for failure. You're going to be frustrated all the time. You're going to feel like you get to the end of the day and you never got anything done that you wanted to do. So that
Hmm.
adjustment of expectation was so helpful, where we learned that quickly, Brandy and I both, because we both were serious, or are serious athletes. We really value our training, and it's something very important to us, but it is drastically different now than before we had kids. And that adjustment was uncomfortable, but eventually, when we started kind of resetting those expectations, where it's like, look, if we can get 30 minutes in uninterrupted, that is a great day. And
Yeah,
anything
it is.
outside of that, yeah, like, anything outside of that is just bonus. So,
Yeah.
um, and that was life with one kid, and we were still, like, figuring out, like, how do we still go do things, and you just learn along the way. And then having our second kid, Lucy, who's 2 now, just turned 2.
Crazy too. I
Yeah,
feel like it was yesterday. It's
I know.
insane.
Yeah, she is rowdy. She is such a blessing to our family, and has been such a just a wonderful addition.
Oh,
In terms of, Brandy and I are both structured people. Liam is a good rule follower. Lucy is just like the storm in the house. It's awesome. Yeah, Hurricane Lucy is what we call her.
oh, that's awesome.
I know. So it's just been fun. So like, yeah, like, I remember the day we had her, we get home and Brandy and I are just like laying there and we're like, what have we done? Like we had perfect control with one child and things were set up finally and we felt like we were balanced and then like here we are. Let's start over.
Throw
And
another one in
yeah,
the mix.
you just readjust. And I mean, there's, you keep the perspective of like, there's a lot of people that have way more kids that have way more things going on. And, but then you get around them and you're like, wow, you're so calm, cool, and collective. Like, how do you do that?
Well, I
Uh,
mean, Travis is a perfect example. I mean, he does a fantastic job.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're just bred for it. They're just people that they keep in perspective and they know, all right, I can't like stress out over everything. I have to pick the important things and put the energy into that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like that was like a next level of learning. That was I'd say the biggest experience there for us with time was, all right, now we've got two kids. We have to, I mean, we're planners. Like we got to plan everything. You got to plan the
Yeah.
day. Every night you sit down and you're like, all right, well, what's the plan tomorrow? And you just, it really challenges and levels up your communication with your partner. So I
Yeah.
think that was a good learning experience with us was, again, like continuing to work together to still make sure that we are getting what we want for ourselves, but at the same time being present parents and not being selfish and being around to raise the kids as much as we can. And we're super fortunate with our jobs that we get to spend a lot of time with our children. It
Yeah.
makes it hard with our jobs, because our hours are just erratic, but we do our best with it. And like, I would not trade it for anything in the world. And then, I think the other learning experience there was learning to do things with your children is super important. Like
Mm.
you can't think, well, once I have kids, I won't be able to do XXX anymore. And like we took our kids across the world last year on a
Oh,
family
cool.
trip to Germany, and it was crazy hard and was not restful. It was not chill, but it was super fun. Yeah. And I mean, people thought we were nuts, and just it was so important because it gave us confidence knowing that we've got these two little ones now, and like life doesn't have to necessarily change in the fact of you have to stop doing things, you have to stop taking risks. It was just a good experience for us to see that and to learn that. And I again, like I can't imagine now doing it without them. Like
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been the same. So I'd say like those are the three big picture stages of how I've kind of grown as a person these last 5 years, having kids and being married to Brandy now for 10 years. Like it's been an experience and definitely helped me grow as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. So you said a lot in there that I want to come back to, but the first thing I was thinking of is you had to learn. You had to learn how to let go of things. So how, and you kind of alluded to it, right? Like what's not a priority, what is, but how did you, like what specific things did you let go of that you can think of off the top of your head? Because I can relate to you, like before I had Maverick and me and Sadie tried to figure all the things out, like I look back on that and I'm like, I wasted so much time. And I've gotten more done in the past year, being 10 times busier than I ever did when I was just competing as an athlete. So I want to come back to that too, but I'm curious your thoughts on that. Like, how did you prioritize? Okay, I'm gonna let it go of this. I'm not letting go of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I had like a list of things I need to let go, but I'd say the pressure kind of like brought to light what needed to be done
Mm,
and leaning into that a little bit. Like I say this a lot, but like um, letting letting the pressure turn into a privilege where it creates or it breeds creativity to get things done more efficiently has
mm,
been like the most helpful part. And that comes with training where it's like, you know, all right, I may not be able to do my strength, my metcon, my mobility, and then my accessory work all in one day. My training today is like I got 45 minutes to an hour. I'm gonna have a very impactful strength session and trust that that's enough. And that's just what it's got to be. And going all in on that, where I'm hyper focused on just the strength elements for the day and being okay with that. And then the next day, I switch gears. All right, I've got 30 minutes. Well, what's going to be most impactful on my fitness? All right, I don't have time to do this like long, crazy warm up, all my breathing exercises. Like I've got to get in and I have to do a progressive build to get some impactful fitness on the machines for the day because again, like I have things I want to do with projects, with work, and to be
yeah,
back home in time to be present with my kids so it's not bleeding over. Um, Dr. John Berardi
I
owns
don't. Mm-mm, not
Precision
familiar.
Nutrition.
Mm-mm.
Um, Precision Nutrition. They're a huge global nutrition brand, or nutrition coaching organization. He's got a, I don't remember when it was several years ago, but he had a really inspiring podcast or interview that I listened to with him where he talked about transitioning and how important that is with someone who has like a busier lifestyle or busier schedule that manages, work, training, family. And he was talking about, is a concept that really stuck with me, is the ability to transition from one to the other so that they aren't bleeding together. And
Mm,
I would say that's like one of the most impactful pieces. That's something I still try to remember and focus on, is when I'm working, I'm fully engaged in work. I'm not letting training bleed into it, or I'm not distracted with family stuff at that time. And then again, like I get home from work, I'm driving home, I say a prayer in the driveway to help me somewhat transition to let go of, all right, I have to let go of the work stuff. I
yeah.
have to know that I trained enough for the day. If I didn't, I accept that. I'll do better tomorrow. And then I can just walk into the house and be fully present with the kids versus, I mean, I make mistakes, I walk in the house and I see the kids, I give them a hug, and then it's like, all right, I got to finish this thing real quick. And,
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't seem very impactful, but they see it, and um, you get to you lay down at the end of the day and you think those things come back to surface on how you acted and reacted in situations. And it's sometimes you face the harsh reality that, man, I didn't do that the best I could, so I'm gonna try again tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that creeps into my mind too a lot. Whenever I'm laying down at night, if I drop Maverick off and then I go to work, 'cause I'm still in the restaurant, hopefully out of there in the next few weeks. But I'll go and I'll be in the restaurant and kind of things will calm down, and I'll be like, man, I really dropped the ball in this X, Y, and Z moment. But what I've found is not running from that and like really reflecting on it
Yeah,
has been so impactful. Like actually thinking through and almost imagining it happening again and me responding different. I've noticed that whenever the situation comes up again, I'm like, okay, this is it's happening. This is my moment to like do it right.
yeah.
Does that happen to you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that reflection's healthy, and it's painful sometimes, because it's a mirror that you're looking back into that's showing you what you did. And yeah, I mean, that's just part of being a parent, is like, you're inevitably going to make mistakes, and we're learning that, we're figuring that out, just trying to do a little better each day after the next. I think a big thing that has helped with that is making sure that I create time
Mm.
early. Not to go down the rabbit hole of like these are the life hacks I do, but more so of man, having time in the morning is so important to have reflection, read scripture, get up, breathe, do some stretching, do emails, just kind of like get myself organized for the day so I can be less less rushed and distracted and
Hmm.
the next periods and opportunities I have when I'm with my family, so I can react better. It's kind of like a good comparison or something to like, yeah, compare it to is you're driving to work in the morning and there's traffic and you're freaking out because it's going to push you late behind schedule, and you want to let someone in, but no, 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 like I can't, I'm going to scoot forward because I don't have time to let them in. Like, who are they to think that they can cut me off? Like, I'm already in a hurry. And it's like, man, if you were 15 minutes ahead of schedule, you had time to be kind and let them in and not let this kind of control your day on how you're going through and interacting with people. And I look at that the same way with like interactions with people, with kids.
Yeah.
When you have more time and the ability to be more kind, and again, that's 100% in your control. Like, I don't care what anyone says, like you can get up a little earlier,
Yep.
and if it's hard, then go to bed a little earlier, like just
Yep.
shift it all. It makes such an impact in your day. And I think the more responsibilities you kind of tack onto your life, you have to be aware of that. And you get to the end of the day and it brings some awareness to know, like, all right, I kind of screwed that up and I'm gonna try again tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people run from accepting the fact that it is in their response, like it is in their power and in their control. They don't want to accept, well, dang, if I'd have gotten up 15 minutes earlier, I wouldn't be facing this. It's so much easier to be like, well, the traffic just sucks and Alpharetta's too busy or, whatever, wherever they're at, instead of being like, man, this is my fault. Like I
Yeah,
didn't get up early enough. And
yeah. I mean,
as soon as you own that, it changes. You're like, okay, I can't really be mad.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's the point.
what have you learned this is a loaded question because there's like 1,000 things you could answer, but I want to ask you anyways. What have you learned? Maybe some of the bigger things about your marriage over the course of 10 years of being married. You know, you painted. So Peter Burke, you did his marriage course, right, at the church.
Yep.
So I'm in it right now, and it's fantastic. I love Peter. Actually, he's going to come on the podcast once I finish. I'm really excited to chat with him about it. There's so many things you could answer, but I'm curious, what has been the most impactful thing for you over the course of 10 years, and like what have you really learned about trying to just be a good husband and steward of that relationship?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, this will go from what I learned from him. The one for me that was pretty eye opening that I didn't realize how much I was holding on to, uh, firmly grasped was the fairness doctrine.
Mm,
And that's something that I think a lot of people, when they get into a relationship, have this expectation that everything's always going to be fair, that if I did this, I expect you to do that. And now you're in a relationship based on expectations. And I don't think that's a healthy way to be in a relationship. I
right.
think you hold each other accountable. But that's not the same thing as saying, like, well, I did this only because I'm expecting you to do the same thing in return.
Yeah.
That's not living servant hearted. And I feel like that's something that it's really hard to get over that because, it was like someone who's regimented and structured. Like, I expect that, oh, because I did this, I'm like keeping check mentally on, checks and balances system on, oh, if I like did the dishes and I expect her to, cook the dinner, and like it just doesn't work that way. And I think it's just been a good humble lesson on, um, as the husband to, uh, I guess, be a little more servant hearted in that I'm doing things out of love and not always out of expectation that there will be something in return for me.
Yeah.
So that's like the biggest one, to answer the loaded question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that's taken 10 years to develop.
Yeah. I think that's a huge one as well. It goes against our human nature, like 1 plus 1 should equal 2, but not it's that's not the case in relationships. It's you throw a 1 out there and a 1 might not come back. Like it's just how it is.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed his class and understanding that the point of marriage is actually to grow you closer to Jesus, right? It's actually it's meant to be really hard and a mirror reflecting back
Yeah.
because like you're with this person, they see every part of you,
Yep.
or at least 99% of you, and that's the point of it. It's not meant to be, we're happy go lucky and traveling the world and having kids and everything's perfect and this is my soulmate. No, it's meant to like refine you.
Yeah.
And that paradigm shift for me was huge because even in my relationship with Sadie, which obviously failed, was because I was like, well, this is ridiculous and blah blah blah. And this is so hard. It's like, well, that's
Yeah.
the
What about
point.
me? Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, relationships are hard. I think it's not something that you just get into and think, all right, like we figured it out and like we'll just be settled. And even if you don't have fights and you don't have um, disagreements, then you can fall into complacency. And I think that relationships are meant to be fruitful and to be rewarding and satisfying. And that's something you have to work at. And I think especially as you are in a relationship with someone for 10, 20 years and for the rest of your life, like there's just never going to be a time where you can expect to just like you know, you guys just have it figured out. Like it's always gonna be something you'll work at, and that's what keeps it alive and keeps relationships fulfilling.
Yeah. What have you learned practically about communication? Because we both know communication is huge in the context of a relationship. Most commonly, I think, from what I've learned, is that men struggle with it the most, like communicating their emotions, their feelings, or whatever. Um, I don't know if you can relate to that or not, but I'm just throwing that out there. But what have you learned practically about communicating, and how have you navigated that effectively?
Um,
We're going deep into relationships. So I actually didn't expect this, but I'm loving it.
yeah, yeah. Slow to speak, quick to listen, um, is an easy one. Pastor Dustin has pounded that into my head year after year. And that's number one. I've always been someone who naturally was ready to say my piece, and learning to be a better listener, to slow down, and to realize that it's not about me waiting for my turn to speak. It's more about just being there to listen and not offering advice, um,
Mm.
not trying to fix anything, to just listen. And if there's emotion, just be in it and be okay with being uncomfortable while in it, even though that's really hard because, as a man, like I want to fix it and I want to find resolution and I want to move on and I want to, let's go. That's not helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is not helpful. And I think, I definitely don't think I've ever been someone who has struggled with expressing myself emotionally. I'm a pretty emotional person. So I think it's more about me learning to harness it a little bit, to kind of pick and choose when I express that so that it's not something that can drag people down or wear people out when, like if you've been around me a lot, like you can tell what kind of mood I'm in. The second I walk in the door, you're like, oh, Mike's happy. Oh, Mike is sad. Like you can just
Yeah.
tell. But yeah, I think to answer the big question, I think for me it was just learning to be a better listener and to not trying to feel like because there's conflict or emotion, positive or negative, that like it has to be fixed or resolved, to just be okay and be in it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge one. Yeah. Have you tried the tactic of, do you want me to just listen or do you want me to offer a solution? Have you tried that tactic?
I mean, yeah, most of the time you know the answer anyway.
Yeah. You're like, well, I'm just gonna sit here and
Well,
listen.
start with listening.
I'm
Yep.
happy to listen. Let's bring it back to health and fitness. So what advice would you give to someone who's in your shoes, as far as like you got kids, you got a job, you're busy, like but you want to stay fit and not just like go on walks fit. Like you want to be strong, you want to be athletic, you want to be dynamic. What kind of advice would you give to that person as far as navigating their training
Yeah.
to navigate it most effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different levels of that. I think there's someone who's like a fitness enthusiast. I think there's someone who's trying to just be more athletic and feel like a normal amount of healthy, where they're not like measuring their fitness necessarily. And
Yeah.
I'll explain that in a second. But and then there's those that are maybe aging out of being like a high level competitor and athlete, which is a very hard transition to being okay with doing less. So I think on like the lower level, for someone that's just trying to find their fitness and athleticism again, I think more importantly, and this isn't going to support anything that we do or sell, but is to play sports. I
Mm.
think there's so much value in getting out and playing sports again, whether it's recreational leagues or pickup games. Like I think that um, you get a good mix of one, it being time efficient. You're going to show up, you're going to play a game for an hour, you're going to be completely disengaged from anything it is that's going on in your life at that time. I think you have good camaraderie and community with the team that you're with, so it's a good accountability where you show up and like if it's a team style setup of recreation sport that you're playing, whether it's like pickup basketball or hockey game or something or soccer, you've got accountability. Like show up and not be like a lard just rolling around out there letting your team down. So I think that's like the simple way in. And if you didn't play sports if you don't have any background in sports and that's not something engaging, I think then joining a gym, like a CrossFit gym is fantastic because you've got the opportunity to build an amazing community with amazing people that want to see you succeed. So, like at the entry level, that's what I see, and I don't think it needs to be overcomplicated. I don't think you need to spend a lot of money. I feel like this low barrier to entry of just finding something that you can do daily that is super fun and engaging to you is so healthy and holistic.
Yeah.
Outside of like, I need this hard regimented training program with all this complexity. I think in the middle of that, what was the second example I had? I feel like it was
Like transitioning out,
yeah,
like being
or that was
athletic.
the final one. Yeah, transitioning out. We'll jump to that. Was um, kind of like where I was, where it was like I'm used to training twice a day for almost 4 hours a day. Like, how do I? But I still want to compete. I still want to be at the highest level that I can. My expectations adjusted quickly when I just realized one, like I'm just not as good as I was anymore. But
Hmm.
two, I just don't have the time to dedicate to train like those that like my current peers at the time, or maybe younger athletes that have very different life circumstances. How do I make peace with that? And I think it's one is like finding a level to compete in that you're proficient at, and just being realistic with that. And that's not saying like, okay, you should just quit or be okay with like stepping down from what level of competitiveness that is. I think you can still have ambitions and pursue that. But I think you also need to be realistic to say, like, I'm just not able to train with what these guys are doing to maintain that capacity.
Yeah.
Is the juice worth the squeeze to me anymore? It's some hard talks, but it's honest talks with yourself. And I feel like what helped me was being okay with saying, look, I'm stepping into masters and I'm going to do some team stuff. And it really allowed me to continue to compete at the highest level with what I could do at that time, and still keep the sport super fun.
Yeah.
And, there was times where I was like, man, like I still should be pursuing this individual. And
Mm.
the effort it took to try and do that, to just barely scratch the surface of being competitive at that level, was just like not worth it. It was a lot of my body, and it didn't allow me to have time to continue to pursue the coaching ambitions that I had and help grow programs. So that was a challenge. But yeah, I think just being okay with knowing what are the things that are really important that kind of excite me, is something that someone should ask themselves and know. All right, this is going to be my target now, and this has this shift has happened. I think that those types of goals are really important to maintain engagement.
Yeah. What kind of things are the most important to you, practically from a training perspective? Like I imagine the story I'm telling myself that you're going to say is like strength work, so like you're squatting, pressing, whatever,
Yeah,
probably some sort of like machine work a few times a week and some
yeah.
accessory work to just stay mobile. Like that's what I have in my head, but I'm curious what you would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'll use myself as an example. For me, it's the spectrum has shifted. It's less strength work because I'm a pretty stiff person. Pretty powerful by nature,
Yeah, you are.
and like I definitely want to maintain strength, but I think that maintaining strength for me looks different in the sense of I'm not trying to keep my snatch and my clean and jerk super high. I'm trying to maintain resilience in my joints, and that, so something like what happens with hockey doesn't happen all the time. Anytime I want to go out and play a new sport, so I do a lot of movement work. I do a lot of structural balance type work where I'm single arm pressing, single arm squatting, um, pressing from different angles to make sure that I am hitting and getting exposure in different dimensions of each joint, so that I'm not just moving all the time, like feeling like I'm strong in a phone booth necessarily, where I'm just really good at going up and down.
Yeah.
So I think that's important, is maintaining strength, but in the context of what the demands are for what I need. And for me, it's to maintain good movement quality and to be able to feel resilient when I'm playing sports and activities that are exciting to me. Like I jumped on the trampoline last night for like an hour with my son and was absolutely smoked. Um,
That's
and
awesome.
like it's little things like that, but like I could go to the gym and do like a hard machine workout and it doesn't impact me the same way. But like out of the gym type stuff, maintaining resilience there is equally important, especially as you get older. And you start to lose that a little bit. Like you get really good at exercising in a gym and you don't
Mhm.
realize that you could actually lose a fair amount of fitness doing, sports related activities or things that I would say like are more out of the box thinking. So
Yeah.
maintaining that super important to me. I'd say for anyone else, like, I think a good balance of it, making sure you're lifting 2 to 3 days a week, in a format that like supports maintaining as much muscle mass as possible. So to simplify that, making sure that the movement selection you're doing is not something that's compromising positions, making sure that if it's bodybuilding related, that you've got access to good machines or you have good form and quality with a barbell or dumbbells, is so important. So, if we're talking about like having conversations with the guys in our men's group, like if I tell them, oh yeah, like thrusters and compound exercises are fantastic for you, but they don't know how to perform them well. Like, all right, I'm going to step it back a little bit and be like, man, some of these machines that you can do, like anything that you can go in and like express your fitness in a high intensity manner that doesn't beat you up, is going to be super helpful. It's kind of a long winded answer, but I think that's one of the more important ones.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very hard question to answer because there's a lot of nuances within it, and there's different goals and there's different training backgrounds. So it's not exactly the easiest question to answer, but I find it's important to just let people know the fundamentals. Like you need to lift something heavy a few times a week just to keep muscle mass and strength there. You need to move dynamically, like you said, range of motion, so you're not getting hurt when you go do whatever. Like you gotta do that, and maybe find a coach. Like maybe find a coach if you're just completely lost, or a program to follow, or something. So you're
Yeah.
not like, is this right? Like you have at least a little bit of guidance.
Yeah. I mean, there's infinite resources out there now, like you can get free stuff anywhere. but yeah, there's a lot of doubt and uncertainty of, is this the right thing for me to do? So definitely consulting with someone is helpful. I would say ask someone that clearly has had experience in it in the past and success with it. So I think just making sure they're careful with who they get advice from. But yeah, like going back to some of the important elements, I feel like the strength work, cardiovascular health, getting out, moving for a long amount of time, more than 15 to 20 minutes, a couple of times a week at a steady state is super helpful. It's good for your mind. It's good for maintaining good cardiovascular endurance. Again, just keeping it really simple. So just get out and do some cardio, and that could be riding a bike. It could be going on an easy run. It could be rollerblading with your kids. Even like pickleball, like playing singles is you're
Mhm.
super active playing singles.
Dude,
I
yeah.
said singles, not doubles, because doubles you are standing around a good bit. But um, like whatever it is, I think it doesn't have to be super complicated. I think as long as you're in your activities almost daily, I think that's super helpful. I train my dad, and the demands for him, like he's in his mid 60s, getting into his close to his 70s. Um, it's a lot of strength work, but we hit the bike 2 days a week just to make sure that he is maintaining good cardiovascular health. And like the impact it's had on his health over the last 10 years from where he was is crazy, and
Awesome.
it's not super complex. We do 3 exercises 3 days a week just to make sure we're maintaining as much muscle mass as possible. And it really just supports his energy. You go through phases. When you're younger, it's all about like supporting performance. When you get older, it seems like it's more about point of diminishing returns, where I'm just trying to maintain as much as I have, where I'm not really earning much fitness anymore, but I'm trying to collect and keep as much of that fitness that I've built over the years as possible.
Yeah, that's key. I think that's a huge thing to hit on too, and we'll start working toward wrapping up because I know you do have to go soon. But I think that's a huge thing to hit on. Is it's much harder if you haven't built a base over the years.
For sure.
It's much harder. Like if you've built a massive base of fitness, your ability to keep that with a very minimal amount, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
And that can be a little bit discouraging and encouraging for people out there listening.
Yeah, I mean, the encouraging thing is, they say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. And I think, like, my father didn't work out his entire life, and we started training and doing strength training a couple years ago. And I mean, I watched his fitness transform, and it
Wow.
made a massive impact. So I think for him that it was testimony that, like, he could have been like, what's the point? I'm getting older, and like, but what it's done to prolong his ability to keep doing the things that he enjoys. Like, we sat down and we built a really fun, we did a fun exercise of creating, this was kind of inspired by Peter Attia, like his own days decathlon, where we basically choose 10 things that he wants to continue to do in his later years. And we made sure that his training supported that, whether it's like make 10 free throws in a row, go on a hike, swim 15 laps without stopping, like all of these things that we kind of compiled and put together in his strength work to make sure that it's supporting that. And yeah, it kept
I love
him
that.
super motivated and inspired. And I mean, for me, it was really rewarding to see, like, like he's in his later years, and he again like never had any interest in working out growing up, and it's cool to see like it's never too late.
No, that's really cool. I love that decathlon idea. That's a great way to reverse engineer your fitness. What do you want to be able to do when you're older? Okay, let's make sure we're working toward that continuously. That's awesome. I love that. That's a very practical thing for people to take away. Um, we'll wrap up with this, dude. So, where's Mike McGoldrick going next? What's next on the docket for you? What are your goals, your ambitions, and what are you striving toward? And how are you getting there?
Man, I mean, number one, I want to get this arm fully functional again.
Yeah.
I'm rehabbing it, but it's kind of a weird one where it's like I'm not rehabbing out of pain. I'm rehabbing function and confidence back in it. Like the ortho straight up told me, like, you can go do whatever, just don't be stupid. And I'm like, well, I don't. I'm like, if you tell me that I don't have to stop, then I'm gonna jump right back in right away. So
Yeah.
just being patient there. I think praying a lot on that to make sure that I can um, rehab it correctly, trying to look again big picture and long term, because I do want to get back to. I'm not done competing in the sport. I do want to give Masters a run. I was kind of looking forward to competing individually in Masters this year, but this changed. So
Yeah.
life happens. It's all good. So I think competitively, that's kind of my next ambition, is to get this fully functional again and make sure that I'm kind of like pushing forward to compete in Masters, which I'll age up next year. So 40 to 44 will be a target.
Let's go.
Yep, I'll no longer be a baby Masters. Um, yeah, I mean our programs and my coaching, like it's a continual journey of learning and growing and trying to just be the best coach that I can, making sure that all the athletes in our programs, that follow our TTD Compete, TTD Affiliate, TTD Fitness, they feel well supported and their experience is awesome. Continuing to help lead teams to make sure those programs are fantastic. In support of Training Think Tank, I love the group of coaches here. So I think just continuously growing together, I think is, just something I'm pursuing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, man, I think just growing as a dad and a husband. I don't really have any like, this is my financial goal or this is my like world travel goal. We're kind of taking it, a day at a time and a year at a time to make sure that we're just the best parents we could possibly be to make sure we raise, good humans in this world.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I think that's fantastic. And I think you're doing a fantastic job, dude. I mean, I see you every weekend at church. You go into the Bible study, you're training, you're working with athletes, like you're doing it,
Appreciate it,
And
man.
it's
Yeah,
it's cool to see from the outside looking in as someone who's younger, someone who's older. I mean, we're what, 6 years apart, whatever, but it's like it's cool for me to see. So I want to encourage you with that, man. You're doing a great job.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'm having a lot of fun.
Cool.
I like everything I do, so it's cool.
Cool, man. All right. Well, it's 9:24. I know you got to jump off it and for your meeting at 9:30. So appreciate your time, man. I think this was really great. I think people will get a lot out of this. If someone wants to reach you on social media or reach out to you, where should they reach out to you at?
Yeah, I mean, they can email me directly, mike@trainingthinktank.com, if they have any questions about our training or, anything we do with Training Think Tank. Instagram is @McGcoaching. You can follow me on there, but it's a hodgepodge of my life, and I try to put structure into it, but it's mostly sharing stuff that we do with our podcast and our programs, and a lot of cooking that we do, and
Cool.
just funny stuff that my kids do. So nothing crazy fancy there, but yeah, I mean the door's always open to any training related questions that anyone might have.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. And I'll link to it in the show notes so people, if they want to go to your Instagram, they can, or the email. All right, dude. Well, hey, enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate it. For you guys out there listening or watching, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep moving forward.
See you, dude.
All right, brother. Here, I'll hit stop. All right, cool. We're good.